Welcome, Panther Nation football fans, to another edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. I am Mr. CeeLo here, talking all things Carolina Panthers, from the draft to OTAs to the preseason to the regular season, from the postseason to the Super Bowl to the offseason. Let the growling begin. Welcome back, you guys. Thank you all for joining us. I know it's been a couple of days, possibly about a week or two, you guys. But it's great being back yet again. As I said, I told you guys, I promised you I was going to give you guys a show, sending off our wonderful core of players that we are unfortunately going to have to say goodbye. And in this three-part series, we're going to start with arguably the best player of this, a guy who was drafted and really put his heart and effort into this football team and really cared about the performance on the field, which I saw that during this entire ordeal of, instead of holding out like a lot of athletes in his position would have done to protect himself, which is an investment, he chose to play. And that guy would be Brian Burns. Before we get started, I must give him the salute, because you don't see many pro athletes do this. Now, do I look down on the ones that don't play the season? Absolutely not. Because we're going to talk about how Scott Fitterer just absolutely blew this. And I'm never a proponent for a guy not getting a second chance, but when you see what what really went down, you will understand why Scott Fitterer never deserves another chance. But let's look at the career that Brian Burns played out with. He started 80 games. Played in 80 games for the Carolina Panthers, amassed 231 tackles over his 5-year career in Charlotte, and had 46 sacks, culminating in a couple of Pro Bowl appearances, and arguably one of the top assets and one of the top players at his position, and one of the most sought after players on the Panthers roster in years, garnering such interest to the point that we must discuss the 2022 trade proposal brought out by the Rams. And most people don't know the details, as Scott Fitterer and the Panthers were handed. Now, this is before the 22 trade deadline, you guys. The Panthers were offered. Now, this is during the season. Most of you don't realize, and it seems to me like it was yesterday. Now, if most of you folks don't know, the interim coach for 2022, who also became the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks inherited this team, and it was amazing that he was able to get them back to a nearly a 500 record with an opportunity to win the division in the finale. But we all know how that went. But however, Matt Rule had been relieved of his duties, and the Panthers were basically looking for the first pick. But Steve Wilks came in there and said, no, we're not going to do that. So why this move was not made, in my opinion, it's just absolutely incomprehensible. You already know that you're going for the first pick. Why in the world do you hang on to Brian Burns? I don't get it. You already understand that you've got a very good defense, a really darn good defense. What, did you just think Steve Wilkes was going to see these guys lay down and fall over? Basically, it was the Lovie Smith parallel there. Steve Wilkes and Lovie Smith ended up getting the short end of the stick on that. And it turned out to be a good deal, more than looks like it. Lovie Smith needs to be getting a lot of credit in Houston, doesn't he?
I'm surrounded by idiots.
Exactly. But let's look at the trade that was not. The Panthers reportedly got this offer. The report claims that the Rams offered the 2024, the 2025 first pick for the Rams. First round pick for the Rams, as well as a second in 2025.
What the What a dumbass. Dumb shit. Dumb shit. Dumb shit.
Now, I don't know about you guys. I'm not big on calling somebody a horrible, horrible decision maker. But when your team is in the tank, I get it. You honestly thought that this team was going to be so bad, they weren't going to win any games. But you underestimated Steve Wilkes and his ability to coach. And these guys played for him. This is why, guys, I was always of the notion that you don't fire Steve Wilkes. What happened last year was a perfect example of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Steve Wilkes had this team show more life in the final games than this team had shown in darn near the entire last two seasons that Matt Rule was here. Sorry, Matt Rule was had a great eye for talent, but the problem is he did not understand what it took to coach a team in the National Football League. Now, back to Brian Burns. Guys, I'm going to say it like this. 2 firsts, one of them you could have possibly gave up the very year that you gave the Bears your first pick. You could have very well gave up your first pick and gave them the Rams pick. And the Panthers would be sitting here with their first pick right now.
Bruh.
I always said that they gave away too much to get that number 1 pick. The Bears ripped them off. And then you had all of these analysts running around here like, I think that was a good decision. I think the Panthers got the better end of the deal.
It's official. You suck.
No. And it's not because Bryce hasn't shown what he's capable of. It's the fact that you gave up too much.
Dumb shit. Dumb shit.
Way too much.
Dumb shit. Dumb shit.
What really is frustrating you guys is that when you look at it, what the Giants were able to get, what the Giants were able to give the Panthers received the 2024 second round pick of the Giants, the 39th overall, and a 2025 fifth round pick.
It's not funny, Ed. Hey, shut up!
Unreal.
Hey, shut up!
Not only do you add an elite pass rusher to the Giants defense, you pair him with Kayvon Thibodeau.
I just hear that name and I shut up. Ooh. Do it again.
And I can't even fathom how good that defense, if they can just stop the run, being the Giants. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Dan Morgan, I'm not angry at. I don't have any animosity towards, because he got what he could. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, he didn't get enough. What do you do with a guy that's on the franchise tag that you're going to have to sign him to a massive deal? You're not going to get anything for him next season. What are you going to do, franchise tag him again?
I'm surrounded by idiots.
The thing that makes me angry more than anything else, and probably makes many of you out there angry, you have to sign Brian Burns. This ain't even up for debate. If you let go 2 firsts and a second.
What the dumb shit. Dumb shit. Dumb shit.
You have to This is not even up for debate. You gotta sign him.
You weak, pathetic fool.
And this ain't Dan Morgan. This ain't on Morgan because you walked away from him with no deal. At some point, you have to tell Brian Burns, okay, if we're making this deal, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. We are simply we're going to sign you to a deal where you're not going to see a whole bunch of money on this end, but we've got a lot of cap space coming up. We're going to spread it out over a time frame. That's what we're going to do. We're going to spread this money out. And I'm not mad at Morgan. I'm not angry at Morgan at all because he understands that we don't have the team to carry what he needs right now. We had to sign 2 big guards, and then we had to I totally understand this, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I don't understand the not signing Luvu or the Jeremy Chin, especially, and another one, Edo Gross Models, who was having a breakout year. But I'm not trying to get off of that. But the problem I'm having, you guys, is we're saying goodbye to this great player because of horrible management. Just absolutely, just brain dead management. And my whole concept is being in on every single deal. I don't care if you're in on this every single deal. If you're letting guys that are in-house walk out the door. You guys heard me say this many a times. Pay Brian Burns. And he was nothing less than a professional. He was straight professional the way he handled it. He went out there and he played his butt off. And there was a lot of naysayers saying that he wasn't playing his butt off. I rebuke you. This guy still gave his all. The problem is when you see a guy in a contract year, what generally happens? What generally happens is you have a lot of guys that just kind of coast, trying to protect their investment, not get hurt. But then when you got a guy on a contract year, the other opposing teams, they know that you're going to go out there and you're going to have that motor going. I didn't see a tail off from Brian Burns. A lot of people thought that. I didn't see it. Especially considering we weren't competitive. And especially when our offense couldn't get it going. I saw an awe-inspired defense that was extremely good considering that this team couldn't get it done on offense. It was just an absolute show. I mean, there's no other way to put it. That's exactly what it was. And for anybody to sit there and say it was anything less than that, you don't know the game. And Brian Burns was always that engine that you knew you had to work. He reminded me of Josh Norman when he was here for his dominant season and a half. You knew you couldn't do much on this. You knew you had to account for this side. You knew that. If you didn't account for him, he was going to wreck your whole game plan. And then you had him paired arguably a guy that had one of the greatest seasons as a defensive tackle in Derek Brown. And then you had the little engine that could in Frankie Luvu. And Ichiro Avero not doing, in my opinion, a good enough job in utilizing Jeremy Chin. I'm a firm believer that there was a failure, a disconnect in that situation because Jeremy Chin should have been on the field. But that's another story. To me, Brian Burns reaped some benefits of Coach Avero's system. I have nothing but respect for Brian Burns. You will always be a Carolina Panther. We know you're moving to the Big Apple now. I hope you will join me in watching this show and giving him lots of love down in the comments below because the Spider-Man has left. And, I'm not going to get emotional, but this hurts. It really does because this was a situation that did not have to materialize this way. If the aforementioned Scott Fitterer doesn't make this stupid decision, and I'm just really appalled at what has transpired. We wish Brian Burns all the best. He has been nothing but one of the best defensive players that we've seen in Charlotte. He was the reason this defense was in the top 10. And his productivity is going to be sorely missed. And we'll definitely tell you what Dan Morgan had to say, whom, by the way, made a pretty good signing today if we can get the best out of Jadeveon Clowney, who is at the tail end of his career, but he puts a major dent in the need at edge. But looking at what Dan Morgan, he's had a difficult go at it, but he's done a pretty darn impressive job listening to Dave Canales. And as I said, Morgan spoke and said, those are always difficult conversations and decisions that you have to make from the seat that I'm in. As he told Darren Gann of Panthers.com, we love Brian, the player he is, the person he is, but sometimes you've got to make tough decisions. And the salary cap, along with draft capital that we have, we felt like it was, time to pull the trigger and make a move. We felt like the timing was right, and yeah, those are always tough decisions, but we had to make it, and we feel okay about it. And of course, we got the Giants' 39th overall pick and a swap of the 141st and 166 selections in this year's draft, and a 2025 fifth rounder. The trade opens up the $24 million he was due under the franchise tag. And yeah, I can honestly say that we did get DJ Wanham, who was pretty good in Minnesota. So, we have an uptick here. I mean, it's not all down. I mean, this is a guy that has the ability to make plays, just not Brian Burns-like plays, but he can make some plays. And I think ultimately with Coach Avero at the helm, he's going to be able to make some bigger plays playing in this style of system. And now with Jadeveon Clowney coming over and possibly, closing that gap. But as I said, guys, this is a really tough time. We're having to say goodbye to the Spider. And it's going to be exceptionally tough watching him play in a Giants uniform, especially when I don't like the Giants. And I would definitely love to see him back in the Carolina Panthers blues. Who knows? Maybe after this deal with the Giants, he can come back. But as I said, Brian Burns, thank you so much for being a professional and representing what the city of Charlotte and all of us in Panther Nation represent, which is integrity, heart, and professionalism. Even though sometimes our leadership doesn't always lead. No reflection of Dan Morgan or Dave Canales, but the ones in the past and present. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you comment and like this show, guys, because we won't give Brian Burns all the love as he takes off for the Big Apple, but we want him to know that we will always have him in our hearts, just not when he's on the field with us. But until the next time, you guys, make sure you check out the Facebook page. Make sure you check out my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below so we can show Brian all the love. Let's get this thing up so people can pay attention to it, that we in Panther Nation still love Brian Burns and we respect him and whatnot. And thank you, Dan Morgan, for doing the job and getting him someplace where he can be appreciated. But until the next time, keep prowling the airwaves and keep growling out. Keep pounding.